Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second Contributor of the Month video. This is a video in which we take some time to get to know one of the contributors that are putting a lot of effort and a lot of work into the Komiser project. Every month, we try to choose someone who deserves recognition for the work that they've done. And this month, without a doubt, even though there are a lot of contributors who are doing a lot of work, and for sure we'll get to them and they will have their time to shine as contributor of the month. But for June 2023, the decision was clear. It was Avinesh, specifically for the work done on the Resource Dependency Graph feature, but not strictly because of that. Avinesh has already contributed to a bunch of other good first issues, helping people and interacting in the community, helping out others. So yeah, it's really great to have you here, and it's great to have the opportunity to get to know you a little bit before we talk about specifically what you've been working on. As I was preparing a few questions for you, Avinesh, I also wanted to look a little bit into the meaning of your name, just to know if there was anything really there, because I did this with Shubham when I looked at the meaning of Shubham's name. Shubham is the Komiser maintainer who was the contributor of the month last month. Shubham's name in Sanskrit means ambitious or bright, or at least that's what I found on the internet. And then I was looking up Avinesh, and just how convenient that it says that Avinesh is a masculine name in Sanskrit with the origin of indestructible. Did you know that?
Well, I did look into, I did search for my name on Google, and yeah, I kind of found something similar over there.
Yeah, even though what did come up was Avinash, but I think you spell yours Avinesh.
Yeah, so usually here in India, you'll find a lot of people named Avinash, and that's unique of me. I'm having with the E in place of the A. It's why it's pronounced Avinesh. Thanks to my mom, dad.
Okay, but cool. But I mean, if we were to take what the meaning of what Avinash means, and we apply it to all the work that you do, that means that none of your pull requests, none of your features are ever going to break because they're indestructible.
I hope.
Yeah. So no, that's great. I think we won't have any issues with your PRs now in the future. So yeah, so just before we get into it, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get started in open source, for example?
Yeah, so I'm a student currently in my fourth year, and I'm based out of India. And I started my open source journey like 3 years back. And the main contributions, or the main journey of open source started with Kubernetes community itself. So I was very much excited to be around people who were building something amazing for the community. And what kept me going was to be in the same call of while they are talking about some fancy stuff, they're talking about the code, they're talking about the community, and you're sitting over there and you're listening to them, and then at some point of time you get recognized by them that, hey, do you want to catch up with this issue, or you want to talk about this, and you pinpoint your opinions, and have fun in the community. So that has been a, a, a part of me for like last 3 years, and it is still going, and that keeps me excited to be in open source space and be contributing to projects mainly in the CNCF, but I'm like, it's open source, so you contribute anywhere you want.
Is anything that you've learned so far in the open source world and in your experience as an open source contributor, has anything helped you in your kind of university studies, or the other way around? Do you see that there's a big mismatch between what you're learning at university and what you're actually doing in real world projects?
Uh, I have been always into open source. So everything that I know today about tech, about non-tech, and the community, it's just from the open source world, from people looking at the code base and everything. So yeah, the university has been a part of me, and I've been studying and the fundamentals over there, which is good. And but applying it over here and with some more concrete fundamentals, and you see practices and all. So everything that I know today is open source for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is what has been for me till date.
And where in India do you live? Is there a big open source community like physically around you, or is it mainly online that you engage with the open source community?
So during like last 2 years, there was some awesome stuff going around the world. So I was unaware about the community that is around me in my place, which is Ahmedabad, a state called Gujarat is here. So inside that there is a city called Ahmedabad. And I didn't know about the local community, but I did know about a lot of contributors whom I met on online, contributing from the India region, and of course from the international as well. But now recently, for past few months, I've been connecting with a lot of people who have been into open source, have been doing contributions, and knowing them physically, meeting them physically, and someone around you that okay, there are people, a lot of people who are doing it, but they're not actually over. Uh, I mean, who are talking to you, like it's not like everyone is there on Twitter and you talk to them. That's the thing. But yeah, there are a lot of people who do open source, and India is just booming in open source these days. You
Yeah.
you find every tech guy knows about open source and they're contributing, so it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see at the end of the year, but I'm guessing that by the end of this year, if we look at all of the contributors of the month to Komiser, I'm guessing 50, 60, maybe 70% are going to be Indian engineers. You guys are doing something special over in India. I was just wondering, if you look back at your open source contributing history, do you find that you go through, or which process do you go through? Do you learn something and then you look for a project in, like, say for example, you pick up Go, and maybe you have a side project, and then you think, oh, maybe I'd like to find an open source project, and through which I'll be able to practice these skills that I've acquired? Or is it the other way around? You think, I would love to pick up a certain skill, let me find a project through which I'll be able to learn that skill?
So for me, it has always been the issues. So what I do is maybe by someone I know about some project, and I solve that issue, or maybe I come across a project and I see an issue and it excites me. And usually when I start with a new project, it's always that I don't know nothing about that issue. So I'm like unaware about anything that is written on that issue, a description. But I kind of get the vibe that I'll understand a lot of things, and I explore on a lot of things, and I take it as challenge. So I take that issue, and then on the go I learn everything. So my the first Go contribution, which was quite a big one, was adding a GCP adapter to a project. And that was written in Go, and that is when I learned Go as well. So I learned Golang, I learned GCP, and everything on the Go. So that has been a thing for me. Even for Komiser, I didn't know about AWS and stuff and the resources and all. So I did the good first issue, solved it, and that was a challenge. I took it.
Yeah, and you took it incredibly well. I mean, we know that you started off contributing to some very important good first issues, but the issue that we'll be talking about today, when you started working on it, it wasn't necessarily an open issue, right? This is something that came out of one of the contributor office hour meetings. We talked about some potential features that could be developed, and you were very quick to jump on. Like, we'd spoken about the resource dependency graph, but it was a very kind of early stage idea. And at the time when you decided that you wanted to work on it, the PRD wasn't even ready. The Figma designs weren't ready yet, but you kind of had enough to get going. And it was incredible how much you've done and how much you've progressed, kind of like spearheading the issue before it even kind of like existed on the GitHub repository. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the resource dependency graph, because you've been working on it for like over a month and a half now, right?
Yeah. So again, the issue was an excitement for me. After reading the description, that we wanted something that could, tell us about what all resources are running on your cloud and how they are connected to each other. That excited me a lot. And it was the contributor calls, monthly calls that were from Komiser, that's when Mohammed talked about, hey, this is an issue if you want to talk. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And of course, my very first few steps of analyzing an issue and doing stuff is I explore a lot in the space to see if there are solutions to it, and maybe some alternatives or something like that. So for that particular issue, I was lucky enough to connect with a lot of folks from the community who are, like, let's say for now, Komiser will be adding the AWS support. So I was lucky enough to connect with folks from the AWS team itself. So I talked to them and asked them, hey, do we have a feature like this? And they were kind enough to guide me to some resources that, hey, you can look into it and all those stuff. And yeah, then I started writing code and things happened. There was a time when the front end part came in and I was not good with front end. I knew it. But again, I've shared the story to the team as well, that uh, I, I just message in the group that, hey, I won't be able to do the front end part. However, after doing that message, I realized that I can't just back out from stuff. So I was like, okay, let's do the front end as well. And I was, yeah, able to do something with the front end. Still progress is going on, but yeah, we'll have that amazing feature on. And a lot of even the maintainers are really excited that this feature is really big, and they're excited for it. So am I.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's definitely very, very exciting. But imagine for somebody who doesn't know really anything about what a resource dependency graph is, why it would be useful, what value does it bring? What would you say?
Yeah. So usually, even in the cloud platforms, you find that you have resources running, and you'll see on the dashboard that, okay, these are the instances, these are the EIPs and whatnot resources are running. But it is really good to have an overview graph where you know which resources are connected to each other, how they are connected to each other. And let's say you have some resources in XYZ region, and then there are resources in some other region. So you should know that, okay, these resources are connected to each other, and that kind of gives a good overview to the team, the users, that we have these resources, and maybe we can add some status to it. Okay, these resources are not running, these are connected this way. So and this could be a good point for someone who is new to the project. They can come in and they can get an overview about how things are working on the project. And yeah, that's it.
So we know that you're currently going through the process of finishing.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So at the moment, what's the process been like? So you went through the initial staging of developing the back end. There was initial kind of POC done, if I'm not mistaken, on the front end side. What's the current state? Did anybody else join the feature working group?
uh, for now, it's mainly me and Shubham. Now, as we have been discussing about a lot of front end right now, so we are trying to divide that entire big PR into two different parts, back end and front end, and then merge the back end right now and then work on front end. And talking about how things are over here. So if I can share my screen,
Yeah, perfect.
I'll be able to. So I tried to do something which was good. I don't know if, yeah. So I was working on this thing. So if you see right now, what dependency graph feature would have is, and these graph actually gives you some good idea about how Komiser actually works behind the scenes and how they grabs data and all. So and the very first aim with the dependency graph thing, and before telling it, let's show that okay, this is how we were expecting it to be. Like you have an EC2 instance over here, and it is connected to an EBS, and these these are the links that are supposed to be showed, right? And this is to be dynamic, and we're gonna support a lot of other providers as well, whatever we provide for now. So my main aim was I didn't want it to manipulate a lot of infrastructure that we were having, or a lot of code base that we were having in Komiser. And just to give an overview, how Komiser works is we run a Go routine for individual providers, and Go routines are just uh, consider them as threads, if I say. But yeah, so for all providers, we run a Go routine, and what that Go routine does is it fetches data from it fetches all those resources. Like let's say if we want to fetch EC2 instance that are running, so it is having a code inside ec2.go or some other file name. I don't remember the name exactly, but it fetches resources, and then it stores into the database, and then things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So my current feature is not manipulating much of it. So what Go file is, it is returning a struct of resources, right? And that struct has some parameters like ID and all those stuff. With this PR that I'm gonna show, or that is going to be merged, is what it does is it adds a new field called relations, and that relations is nothing but is an array of links that is ID and relations. So relation here is the name of the relation that is gonna. So let's say if there is an EC2 instance, so EC2 instance will have an ID to it added over here, and then uh, there are relations that let's say your EC2 instance is connected to an EIP, right? So you'll have ID of an EIP over here and the relation name of that particular thing. And then what we do is we return this data, so the relation, and along with the other data to the aws.go. And what aws.go does is it adds to the database that we store locally in Komiser. And I created an handler slash endpoints, which is this. And what it does is it fetches that data from the database, and it waits for an API call from the front end to come, and it returns you the data. And we iterate over the relations that we find manually, and we draw a graph. That is the plan, and it's still going on, but that is the plan. And just to be clear over here, what the PR does is it manually checks for the relationship that can be present. So, and this is the place where new contributors who are willing to contribute or can come in, and what they can do is they can just create functions for individual resources. Then that what that function would do is it finds all those relationships that exist for a particular resource, and the flow would be like this. And yeah, so this was an idea, and this is how the front end looks like for now, right? So if you see over here, there is an EIP present over here, and it is connected to, okay, it's lagging, but it's fine. And it's an EIP over here, and it is connected to the EC2 instance, and so on. The
Mm-hmm.
graph goes like this. You can see it is, for now, it is a complex. It is not exactly the way we want it, but this is where the process is still going on. We're working on it. We're trying to make this graph more user friendly, and give some fancy UI to it, because that's what I have heard from Mohammed. And in the previous call, he did mention this thing that Komiser is a project that wants to also give a good UI to the project. So which this is the part that we're working on. This is the PR that is, and you can see it is a good amount of code base that I added, but this is going to divide into two different parts, and yeah, we'll have this merge.
Very, very nice. And yeah, and but it's kind of normal, right? That this is the point, this is the kind of fork in the road where you're getting more help, since before this you hadn't really touched much of front end work. So yeah, it's incredible that you've taken the the features so far. So that's incredibly cool. I won't ask about a timeline, because I'm sure that we don't know exactly what minor upgrade this feature will be ready for, but I'm sure that once it's ready, it's going to be incredibly useful. And yeah, I also saw that in the working group that you were talking about what potential frameworks to use to bring this kind of like higher kind of quality of the front end. And you, of course, we always want to be careful to use open source frameworks, so we can always maintain that in the correct way and keep it all open source. So incredible. Thanks a million for showing that. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions before letting you go. But the first one was, when you are like thinking about contributing and you're going through different projects, what is it that you're thinking about, or what is it that you're looking for in a project that usually catches your attention?
So if I just answer this question in one word, that would be learning. So for me, whatever issue I take, whatever project I take, it's always been learning. So you learn, I go and learn new things. Like for Komiser, front end, back end, and I never really worked on a project that was doing a front end and back end thing. It was mainly in the CNCF ecosystem, and it used to be usually the softwares and all those stuff. So Komiser was the first place where I worked with the databases, where I worked with uh, the front end and the back end, everything. So that was a learning for me. If I go for some XYZ project, again, the issue would give me an excitement. Okay, I'll be able to learn these new things. Let's say eBPF, and so it would be an exciting thing for me. Like, oh, that's a whole new thing. Let's learn it. So that has always been the motivation for me.
Nice, very cool. And you can usually tell by the issues, right? If the issues are well constructed or well thought out, you can tell if there's something there that you'll be able to learn quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you can always ping the maintainers, open source. The maintainers are really awesome. They can, get you started. They can give you good descriptions. Even sometimes I've got maintainers who have come on a call to explain me these things, like, hey, this is an issue and all those things. So it's really good.
Yeah, and one question that I usually like to ask at the end of these conversations where I talk to contributors is that, um, no matter like how much time we spend in open source, there's still new people kind of learning about it every day, and a lot of people, even though there's a lot of resources out there, they have a lot of questions, right? So what tips would you give to people who are just like starting off in their open source journey? Like what things were not that intuitive to you when you started that are clear now?
So what I think is, usually when we start, it's more we hesitate to take on issues, to talk to people and get started. That is the main part. So what I now do and what I would say myself when I was starting is take on an issue and start it. Start exploring to that issue, start exploring to that project, learn it, right? And you learn to do that. Because as you start, of course, for like let's say for few weeks you won't be able to do anything. You will be just be exploring. But I'm sure after a few weeks you'll be knowing that particular issue or that particular area that you have been exploring more than anyone. Because you have a great insight to it. Like you know the depth of that particular code base as well. So you for new contributors, just start take an project and just start doing things. That is what I'll say. And other than that, um, community is there to help you, but community is going to help you when you do your research. Good. So that is other point that I'll say. You do your research, you explore things, you do your good homework, and you ask. Community is gonna help you. And even let's say you did a research in a very wrong direction, and you are on a ground zero for now, and you show them, okay, I have explored this much, and I'm not going anywhere. So they'll guide you that okay, you have been exploring in a wrong direction. So that zero is good place to ask question other in place of asking question directly. Okay, I've done nothing and still asking question. That won't help because maintainers are really busy and they have their own stuff to do.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, there's never going to be a point, especially if you're starting out, that you're going to feel 100% ready to take on an issue. In your opinion, you should take that issue first, and you'll get there. Because yeah, I totally agree with that, because sometimes you feel that if you take an issue and you asked somebody to assign it to you, that means that they're expecting you to get it merged in 3 days, or get it or to push your changes there in 3 days, and that's not really the case. If it's really urgent, you can talk to the maintainers and maybe you can give it back if you're not going to be able to get it done in time. But it's just the first step. You don't have to know exactly how to do everything, but just definitely take it first. Take the first step and jump into the swimming pool head first.
Yeah, exactly. And just other point is you should also look like any other contributor. If you're starting with if a very small change to a code base, let's say renaming a variable, try it, and you have done this for like 2 3 PRs. After that, try to just grow your contributions, the level of contribution that you're doing. You just don't want to stick to a particular like typos and all those things. That is not going to help you. You need to try new things, you need to add more code base and you grow. So that is something I would also add to that point.
Yeah, I was reading a book recently about picking up new habits, and it just did the comparison of, if you want to grow your muscle, you need to progressively overload it, right? You have to put some extra stress on it, do something that you haven't done before to gain new muscle. And it's kind of like the same with picking up a new skill. Like, you have to go through some pain, you have to put yourself through some adversity, and then you'll be able to pick up something new. Because of course, if you're comfortable just changing variable names or correcting spelling mistakes, that's great, but you're not really pushing yourself, right? So that's great advice. Perfect. So speaking of busy maintainers, I know you're also pretty busy, so I'll leave you to it. Avinesh, thanks so much for taking the time. Just like to say again, big congratulations for being the contributor of the month. And yeah, we'll happy to keep on working. We'll see you on Discord.
Sure, it was lovely conversation.
Cool. All the best. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Bye bye.